A few months ago, or I'm not sure if it was a few months ago or a few weeks ago, either when I announced that I would be moving to a new assignment this summer, or when I announced my new assignment, a parishioner approached me and asked if I would preach on the subject of change. When I was asked, I had no objections on preaching on the subject of change. The challenge for me is not the subject, but the challenge is finding the appropriate time to preach on this topic of change, particularly when the Scriptures would support the subject of change. And as I reflect on the Scriptures for today, I think our Scriptures today lend themselves to a vision of change, particularly a vision of change that I was asked to preach on with my impending movement, but also the change with the change you're going to experience with beacons of light and families of parishes, and perhaps you're also anticipating some other change in your lives as well. Many of us, when we hear the word change, we say that we do not like the word change. We say change is difficult. We say change makes us feel uncomfortable. And even sometimes when we know that a change is necessary, needed, sometimes we still avoid making change. We generally view change as a bad thing. Yet at the same time, we know that change can be a good thing. It's necessary and sometimes even needed. For example, when we're doing something bad, wrong, or something that's not good for our overall health, change is good and change is needed. When we become stagnant in our own lives, when we become very comfortable and bored with what we're doing, sometimes it's good for us to change ourselves so that we can grow and expand. This change is a good thing. We might be doing something good, and the Lord still might call for us to change so we can do something even greater. When we reach a milestone in our lives, we're soon to enter into a season of graduations, marriage, retirement, and feel free to list other names of milestones in life where changes occur. These events bring about change to our lives. And none of these changes really are bad. As a matter of fact, most of these changes are rather good things. In our Scriptures today, we hear about change. And we are soon to experience change, and I think this change that we hear about in our Scriptures today is similar to what we're going to experience. And the exchange that we're going to experience might meet some of the categories I just mentioned. But I think the change that we're soon to experience is in a category of itself. In our Scriptures today, we hear that Paul and Barnabas, they were on a move. They went from Lystra to Iconium, Antioch, Pisidia, Pamphylia, Italia. Each year during this Easter season, the church invites us to read the Acts of the Apostles. It's here that we hear how the church formed and it grew. The church was born and grew out of Pentecost. I think another big moment of the church, of the word of Jesus spreading, came after the martyrdom of Stephen. The church dispersed. But as the apostles went and fled, and as the people went and fled, they preached the message of the word of Jesus. And as the apostles preached, they drew others in. The apostles were on the move. The apostles were missionary. And it's through the ministry of the apostles the church moved, the church grew, the church transformed, and it was changed. The church was on the move and grew and was transformed and evolved. It changed through the ministry of the apostles. Because the church at its foundation is missionary. And missionaries don't stay put. They move. The church at its beginning is missionary. The church is a living organism. And throughout our history, the church has always moved. The church has always grown. The church has been transformed and evolved, and it changes. Today, our church continues to move. It continues to grow. It continues to be transformed and evolved. And with it, it changes. This is good. Because the church is alive. The church continues to live into its missionary identity. Sometimes we are part of the tools that God uses as the church moves, grows, transforms, evolves, and changes. As we prepare to live into the beacons of light in the family of parishes, as I prepare to be sent and other priests are to be come into my place. They've not been named, but it's probably good to be praying for them still. And all this growth at times comes with mixtures of emotions. Excitement and hope, joy and anxiety, fear, and perhaps even some growing pains. In our scriptures today, we hear that Judas just left, Jesus and his fellow disciples, with a plan to get a group of religious leaders to betray Jesus, to have Jesus arrested, and it will eventually lead to his crucifixion and death. And it's in this moment that Jesus is about to become the tool that's going to be used for a great change, for a great evolution. Jesus is about to become the tool of our salvation. And it's in this moment Jesus gives us the great commandment, the greatest tool we could ever hope for. Jesus calls for us to love one another, to love as Jesus loves. As we live in this commandment of love, we're bound to be moved by the Lord. The Lord transforms us and evolves us, and we change our world. As Jesus' love moves and transforms and evolves and changes our world, we allow ourselves to be the tools that our God uses so that we can share God's love, with our world.